You were with CarQuest Technical Institute, correct?
Correct.
And give us a little bit about your background.
Well, this will be my 25th year working with automobiles professionally. Um, I spent a little more than half of my career at the dealership level, and I reached the upper levels of in the shop foreman, team leader, things of that nature. And I had a really good understanding of how vehicles worked and the atmosphere I was in. But I was introduced inadvertently to a man named Jim Morton through an aftermarket class that was being held after hours. You know, the ones that serve pizza and chips.
Yep, and the
And
ones that the guys really don't want to be sitting there.
yeah, I was asked to go as a favor, and I did, and I'm really glad I did because I couldn't believe the level of confidence that this man exuded when he talked. And I said to myself, "Man, I really want that confidence." Well, after seeking out private instruction with him, I was uh I was surprised to find out he's gonna charge me $100 an hour, and the son of a gun did. I cut him a check for 600 bucks that night. But after that, he took me under his wing like an uncle to a nephew and taught me really how cars worked. So after that, I got into the independent side of the industry and just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, trying everything I could to learn how things work. And after I got on that path, I became a self learner and and was motivated to teach myself how things functioned, and that kept me at the forefront of technology, if that makes sense. So I found
Yeah,
myself in a really good position.
and with today's cars, technology, it's never ending. It just keeps going and going and going. And so training is huge in our
It
industry.
is
And
most definitely.
that's exactly what you're doing. You're
I,
teaching the newer stuff, and how do you keep up with that technology?
well, fortunately, I'm involved with Advanced Auto Parts, which is CarQuest Technical Institute and World Pack Training Institute, and we have a team of the most elite professionals you could think of in this industry: shop owners, engineers, veteran instructors, and technicians that actually put together curriculum from the bottom to the top on the latest technologies, and they put together PowerPoint programs for us as instructors to study and prepare. And believe it or not, I can stay on top of technology with that alone.
Wow.
If that's the only thing I leaned on, so I'm very fortunate to be involved with that company.
Do you
Very, very
find
fortunate.
uh, learning it that way now, do you put it to hands-on so you have a better understanding when you go to a classroom to teach it?
That's a great question, and I think honestly, most technicians, this might be a fair statement, maybe you'll agree, most technicians like hands-on over theory. I agree with that. However, we need the theory because once I had the theory, the hands-on just fell into place. If I did it backwards, I did hands-on first and didn't have the theory, I was kind of shooting from the hip. So what I try to do, Brett, is when I hate to even use the word teach. To me, it sounds condescending. When I don't teach, what I show people is what works for me, if that makes sense. And that's how I
Yes.
know it's the real deal because it made me successful. So I
And
try to
yeah,
show them what worked for me.
and I think that's what you said. I mean, most techs like the hands-on stuff, and that's most people learn better that way instead of out of a book. And
And
if you can give that guidance, it only helps them to go back to their shops to put it what I want to say, put it in place and use it.
yes, and I'll be honest with you, just a little plug here for CarQuest. We actually have the technology to do hands-on in a virtual classroom type atmosphere with a series of cameras, angles, views, and internet connection. Um, we can accomplish a lot of times what you simply can't accomplish live because you can't put, you know, 25 or 30 people around an area on a vehicle. So it took some practice, but we're doing quite well with it as a team of instructors with that program.
That's great. That's great. So you're coming up to Tools at the Kalahari and the Poconos in October, and you've been there before. What do you think of the venue alone?
Well, I love the venue. For starters, it's great for kids. And me as a dad, as a ex-husband now, when I was a husband, I was torn. It's always tough to leave your family and go to training. But when I could bring the wife and kids and let them, go have a blast. It's all under one roof. We don't have to worry about anybody, going anywhere or hopping on a bus or an Uber or anything like that, they get done at the water park, a huge indoor water park, all their snacks and concessions, and they just go right up to their hotel room, take a shower, and we all go to dinner together. So
Yeah,
it,
it's a
it's
great
absolutely
venue, and
it's huge. It really is.
um, but you guys are going to be teaching. CarQuest is bringing. They're going to be doing 4 classes for us. You're doing 2. I think
Yes,
the
sir.
first one on Friday is modern engine condition testing. Tell us a little bit about what that class is and what they're going to get out of that class.
That's a great question, and I love that class because modern engine condition testing goes a lot more than just compression testing, what we're used to evaluating the mechanical condition of an engine or maybe even cylinder leakage. We have to take into account that with today's CAFE standards, corporate average fuel economy, and what they're seeking in the near future, it takes every little effort we can do to put technology into these engines. We're talking about variable cam timing, turbocharging, supercharging, variable cylinder management, cylinder canceling, Atkinson cycling, auto stop start. All those things come into play. And what's synonymous about every vehicle is that all those technologies can be found in every vehicle line. How each manufacturer does it and controls that system is a little different. So we're going to go into the ins and outs and how to accomplish those goals of those items I mentioned earlier, and give the attendees confidence in their diagnostic approach so they can solve seemingly difficult problems easily by looking at data and then focusing on some testing strategies based upon the analysis of that data they gathered.
And the data is important, and that's from our standpoint, the biggest challenge we have is educating the consumer that they can't just go pop a code and put a part in. There's a lot more information in that code that we need as a technician to and a service facility to properly repair the vehicle.
Absolutely. You said the key word, Brett, data. Look, I had a sticker made. The data doesn't lie. That's me right there. But
That's pretty
that's
cool. You're bringing up the tools that people can get
I
those.
sure am. Yep, if they
Oh, that'll
answer
be
questions, they'll get stickers. If they
yeah. There we
participate in
go.
class, they'll get stickers. That's how we'll do it. We'll draw them out like that.
Yeah, I was kind of interested in, I'm not a technician background. It was a second generation, and I'm in the office running the business. So what I know about the automotive repair is after being in it 37 plus years now, I just understand a little bit about it. So I rely on my guys to come to these classes to learn so they can tell me so we can relay it to the customers. So,
That's great. That's
um,
that's what the key is, being able to educate our customers. We start to win some of those battles about cost, and are
yes,
we ripping off the customer? Do I really need that? If we can make them understand at a level they can understand, it makes that process a lot easier.
and that's the biggest challenge we have is as an industry. Some of the other classes, John was not able to join us tonight. So he was going to be doing the domestic charging systems and power distribution and all wheel drive technologies. And that's probably constantly changing as well.
For
But
sure.
your other class you're doing, which is Sunday, and I know my guys always have an interest in this digital oscilloscope.
What's absolutely great about digital storage oscilloscope, DSO as we call it, lab scope, yeah, all those names apply to the same tool, is it gives us a couple abilities. First of all, with multiple channels, multiple test leads, we can look at more than one thing simultaneously, which is the way I prefer to test because that evokes something called action reaction testing. I'll give you, for instance, Brett, if I was looking at the pressure in an intake manifold through a map sensor and I was looking at an EGR position by way of its position sensor, I should expect when I open up the EGR valve and I see the pintle position change, I should see a correlating change in map sensor signal because we're creating a vacuum leak to the exhaust stream.
Right.
Well, by simply looking at those two, if I don't see that change occur quick enough, rapidly enough, it helps infer that maybe the EGR ports are clogged. And that's just a really quick example of action reaction testing. But even better than that, the scope provides us a history. We don't have to be watching something in real time. It's stored in that data storage tank called a scope buffer. So we can go back and review it. And because scopes have such high sample rate, it's almost in real time. So we can see things occur very, very, very swiftly and accurately. And that's why scopes are such a valuable tool. And the best part is it applies to every single thing we work on. So I'm excited about that because that's a game changer for a technician if they can get comfortable using a scope, learning how to
Yeah,
implement it.
because what's the normal thing? You're gonna look at your data, maybe do some pinpoint tests, at the connector or through the lab scope or whatever you're using, or the scan
Yes,
tool. Other than that, you're tearing stuff apart. But there are easier ways, which you're going to tell us, teach these guys how to test this stuff
absolutely.
without ripping half the stuff apart.
I can tell you what the lab scope has done for me is allowed me a game plan, and I'll call them stepping stones. Every test I perform is justified by the test I just performed previously. So there's not any missed steps and there's no wasted steps either. We've all been under the hood where we're jumping around, we're testing for fuel pressure, then we're testing for spark, and then we're moving parts around and we're going on road test after road test after road test.
Trying to
And
catch the data.
yeah, and we're working our tail off. But if we can gain diagnostic direction early and perform the tests that only need to be performed, because our earlier test eliminated 25 of the 30 potential faults. That simply can't happen anymore because the data proves they're not a problem. That's the way I like to approach problems now.
And that
And it gives you
makes
a lot of confidence.
that makes the technician's job that much easier, that they can get to the problem quicker and get paid for what they're worth.
It
As
sure
long as
does.
the shop is charging properly for diagnostic procedures.
Well,
That's
and you know as well as I do, being in the office, how much better is your day when the technicians are happy versus when they're grumpy?
it's so much easier, so much
Yeah.
easier.
So if a tech can start
Oh,
to con
I think
there
somebody's
you go.
gonna hop in on with us here.
Oh, wonderful, that'd be great.
Well, as soon as I see a video signal from him.
Yeah, no problem. So if a technician has the right tools for the job, they can apply those tools to gain some diagnostic direction and solve problems not only accurately but more efficiently. Their confidence goes up along with their income. And then everybody's happy, technician, shop owner, and customer, because you become the true professional there.
Yes, and that's the main goal of this industry, is work smarter, not harder. I
Absolutely.
believe we're joined by John Gillespie. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, I'm here. I can't seem to get the video working.
Hey, John.
Hey, Brandon. So I'll just have to just pretend I'm on the radio.
Um, so, John, thanks for joining us. Tell we Brandon and I have been talking a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got with CarQuest Technical Institute, and we'll go from there.
Well, my background is I became a technician pretty quick right out of the Marine Corps here in the
Thank you for your
background.
service.
And that was in the late 70s. So I've been a technician for more than 45 years now. Uh, Started out in the dealer network, eventually went aftermarket, and finally ended up having my own shop. And I've been self-employed since like '98. And it was just me and the wife, and I turned every bolt, and we never had employees, but I emphasized the electronics, computer controls, high tech stuff. So I know what it's like to have 17 scan tools in the shop and spending $1,000 a month on software updates.
Yes.
Um, Go back a few years when the International Automotive Technicians Network, the IATN, was really uh, a big game. I joined there, and that was probably, oh heavens, '97. So it's I was probably in the first 5,000 members, and wrote all kinds of things on there. I made my opinions known. I shared all kind of tips that it's kind of fun now these days. I see my tips recycled and in many cases improved on, but I know when they came from something that I created in the past. But Chris Chesney was running CTI. And one day the telephone rang and it was Chris on the phone. He's like, "Would you try to teach a class for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll try anything." And that was almost 15 years ago, and I'm still teaching for CTI.
There you go. So Brandon's already going through his classes that he's going to be teaching, and you got the two Saturday classes. The
Yeah,
uh, the effective, what is it? The troubleshooting one with the domestic charging systems.
that's correct.
Tell us a little bit about what they're going to learn in that class and what's it geared.
Well, as you see, domestic charging systems are all computer controlled these days. So we're going to be working on some strategies for understanding how the computer operates and controls the alternator. Um, we'll leverage that for diagnostics. We'll pay attention to things like how the charging system might have a fail-safe mode in the event that it loses communication, what its behaviors are going to be. We'll leverage using the scan tool for some of our diagnostics, and of course, there's going to be some pretty good oscilloscope usage. And that just plays right into where most technicians really need to be today. Having the ability to use an oscilloscope. Uh, some of the tricks that I employ is I get pigtail connectors so I can actually make jumpers to go in between the alternator and the rest of the vehicle, so I can do some not only testing, but commands. And while this class doesn't specifically get into doing that, I have the ability, of course, to create my own commands and force the alternator to charge, even if the computer would not be able to tell it what to do. So there's some things like that that I'll actually be touching on that kind of go beyond the scope of the regular class.
Well, that's good. That's good. And then your
And
other one.
then the other
Go ahead.
class is the all-wheel drive class.
Yep. All-wheel drive technologies, and I think Brandon and I were just touching on that. Some of that stuff it just keeps changing.
Yeah, and again, it all starts with understanding the fundamentals of the systems, what you can do, what you can't do, and even simple things that can really be a trap for the vehicle owner. Uh, if you have one tire need to be replaced, you can't just change one tire.
Oh, tell me about it. Have that conversation with your customer. Well, I only got 2 that need replaced. Why can't I just do 2? Well, you can, but you're gonna tear up your drivetrain a little bit down the road.
Well, there's serious potential to do that, and we got some routines for the technicians to be able to figure out if the tires truly match sizes. We've got some case studies that are associated to the class, and one of them is actually pretty interesting because it's a Jeep that when you look at the tires, they're the same brand, the same sizes as far as what's on the sidewall, but 2 of them were manufactured in Japan and 2 of them were manufactured somewhere else in the world, and they were different enough to cause a drivability problem.
Wow. So it's not just, it tearing up the drivetrain, it's causing some technology problems on the computer end.
We'll leave that for the class, what
Okay.
exactly it's doing, but it was causing a severe vibration.
Yeah,
And it was
it's
hard for the technicians to figure out what was going on.
so, Brandon and John, what do you guys say about training and tell us a little bit about why it's so important to be trained and come to these events and classes that it's not just an expense, it's an investment.
John, you mind if I jump in there real quick?
No, go right ahead.
Well, as we all are well aware, technology keeps increasing as time goes by, at lightning speed. And if we're not keeping up with technology, we are indeed falling behind. And the reason I mention that is because the the technology we faced all the way back in the 20s is still there. Um, but the added layers of complexity just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So if you're in the hole now, if you're not up to date now, it's only going to get worse with time. So we call it an investment rather than a cost because training truly does pay. The little bit of time away from family, a little bit of time away from work, and a little bit of money invested in learning is going to do wonders for your confidence and your abilities to not only troubleshoot, diagnose accurately, but more efficiently as well. And when you're accurate and efficient is where your confidence comes from, you're going to have better days at work. So there really is no downside to it, but you got to do it. You got to stay on top of technology and come to training. And I can't think of a better event than AASPPA's tools event over in the Poconos. Um, it's a nice event at a great venue. close to home, not too far from anywhere in the tri-state area. And it's a really, really good time, not only for the technician in training, but for family members as well. So it's a great little built-in mini vacation if you bring your family along too.
And that's the key. You had mentioned you're away from your family a lot enough anyhow for throughout the day working, going to training in the evenings. Bring your family to this event. Let them enjoy it. We do have time built into the schedule, so you have time to go play. Enjoy it with your family. So, John, were you up at the Kalahari before?
Yes, I've been there. This will be the third year in a row. Beautiful place. Love the water park. Um, One of the other things for people who maybe have never gone to a convention like this, in many cases, shop owners, technicians deal with the day by day challenges. And you sometimes feel like you're in this all by yourself. Well, when you get to go to some of these events, you'll find out that everybody else many times is facing the exact same challenges you are. Some people could be at different, stages and maybe have solutions for some of the things that could be driving, a shop owner crazy and just needs somebody else to help them look at maybe a different way. And the networking that it comes from, the friendships you build. And then you realize, okay, you may have your niche that you really specialize at, but here, just on the other side of town, there could be somebody else who's got a niche that doesn't fit your perspective. And now the two of you can start to work back and forth, making each of your lives better and less, annoying sometimes as far as the way that career can be. Because it can be
Yes.
a challenge when things aren't going smooth.
Yeah, and it's not only just coming to learn, you're coming to network. You guys hit that. John, you had touched on it with the IATN back in the day. That was a huge technician network. That if you had a question, you put it out there, and somebody's going to have an answer for you, one way or the other. Um,
And a lot of what we do today, actually, you can find paths back to what was going on in the IATN back in the early thousands. You can, if you know how to look for it, you'll actually find a lot of the stuff goes all the way back to what everybody was helping each out with back then.
and does CarQuest have something like that, like an Identifix or a hotline like that? Does the CarQuest World Pack, do they have that for the technicians if they are like I'm a TechNet shut? I'm also a Napa Auto Care Center. Napa doesn't like me being TechNet, but I'm both. So is there a network or like a hotline like that for people if they become a CarQuest shop or a World Pack shop?
Well, let's just say there really isn't a hotline. But like for me, I'm semi-retired. I travel around, I do the teaching, but when on my downtime, I'll be studying anything. And for the technicians who've attended training, they've always got my contact information. They can get hold of me and I'll start trying to help them figure out how to figure out what's wrong with their car. I'm not going to give them a silver bullet. I'm not going to tell them what I think is wrong because if I guess something, bet against me. But I'll spend the time to figure out what they got to do to figure out what's wrong with the car because, in a way, that's just me doing more studying for myself.
Right.
Hmm.
And
I second that.
all of our instructors usually will bend over backward to help all of our technicians that come to training.
Yeah,
So,
Brandon touched on that earlier. That it's huge for him to be able to do that. Um,
yeah, and it is fun when you get to beat one that's a real complicated matter. But with Brandon, him and I worked together on one to help one of my technicians. It was about a year and a half ago now. That at 500.
Yeah. Yes, sir. It's been a
Oh
while.
man, and that had a loose reluctor for the crankshaft pickup, and it was set in false misfire codes. And the
hmm.
shop had been fighting it for more than a year, including the dealer fighting it, and they weren't making any headway. But using the toys and the tools and the strategies that are available to us today, we got it figured out for them.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a Dodge Dart in our shop that was giving us fits, and the data, like you had said, Brandon, led us to a control problem, which is the controller for the fuel rail was out of the BCM or the PCM, and there was an update recall update, and then it was also a catalytic converter recall. So we told him get the update done. I'm not saying he's got to fix it if it's a faulty. The dealership told him all it just needed plugs. It didn't just need plugs.
I
It
have a
didn't.
YouTube video on a Dodge Dart multi-air that I do a diagnostic routine on. And when you have all of the routines available to you, the amount of information and the diagnostic strategy can progress very rapidly. I literally have the car diagnosed in the length of the video. So you'd have to watch the video to get an idea what I'm talking about, but we're talking under 3 minutes.
Guess what? I'm John. Email me that link, and I'll go out there and have my guys look at it. So the
I'll
customer,
get that to you,
the
but it's
customer did get rid of the Dart. So he asked my opinion. I said, get rid of the Dart. You should have never bought it.
oh, I can think of a few cars that deserved fitting endings.
Yes. So Brandon, any last words, encouragement to anybody that's thinking or on the fence about coming to training up at Tools at the Kalahari? It- Anything.
Just do it. Do it. Get signed up, make friends, shake hands, hand out business cards. I got news for you. I've got friends, dear friends of mine, that I only ever see once or twice a year at training, and they're some of the best friends I've ever had. We're all in this together. Those days of cutting one shop's throat to save the other are over. We're all in it together, and there's plenty of work to go around if you stay on top of technology. So get to
Yep.
training, get yourself signed up tonight, tomorrow, as soon as possible, and hopefully I'll see you there. And if I do, come say hi. Come say hi.
Yep. John, anything you want to add?
I'm going to go with it this way. I can remember as a younger technician that everybody thought that knowledge and experience was based on what you have done and how many times you've done it. Today, walking up to something you've never seen before is normal, no matter how long you've been in this career. So you've got to have skills and routines that allow you to deal with things you've never seen before in an effective manner. That is not something that happens overnight. That doesn't happen with one class, but it takes a commitment and a series of classes and effort and learning how to use the equipment that's available to us today. And that is something that can be accomplished. And that's what this training is all about, is helping technicians start onto that path, because they're going to keep walking up to more and more things they've never seen before, and it is perfectly normal.
Yes. Hey, John, Brandon, I thank you guys for joining me here this afternoon. Um, we're looking forward to seeing you up at Tools. And if you are a technician and your owner does not want to pay for it, stress to them that this is important to you and important to their business. They should be making the investment in you as a technician. So like we had talked about earlier, it's not an expense; it's an investment in your career, your future, to better serve your customer base. So I appreciate you guys, and make sure you get up to Tools. Make sure you check out CarQuest Technical Institute. Brandon and John and their staff of trainers have you got virtual training, you got in classroom stuff going on. You guys do this all over. So we can't wait to see
And
you up. Yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say real quick, virtual training, some people don't realize when we're doing the online Zoom classes, I'm inside my shop and I can do live hands-on demonstrations at a moment's notice. So we actually can make the classes very interactive. If we're doing a scope class, we want to do compression pressure transducer, I can literally hook up and do live testing in the middle of and the thing is, everybody has the same ability to see what we're doing because of the cameras and everything else we have available. So it's pretty intense.
That's good. That's good. I may have to look into that because my CarQuest guy keeps telling me I got to get there. I got to get there. So yes, I'm a owner that does invest in training. So we're going down to ASTE. We're going to Tools. I'm going over to Super Saturday. So train, train,
Well,
train. That's what we got to do.
I'll see you at all
Again,
sounds
three.
good.
yep. Gentlemen, thank you guys very much. We'll talk to you soon.